Hi, welcome to a video with an overview of the dual degree program between George Mason University and the University of Malta. I'm Julie Shedd, I'm the Associate Dean and a faculty member in the program. This degree program pairs George Mason University's Master of Science in Conflict Analysis and Resolution with the University of Malta's Master of Arts in Conflict Analysis and Mediterranean Security. The program is taught entirely in the country of Malta, which is an independent country in the Mediterranean. It is a fairly small country, 316 square miles of surface area, completely surrounded by water. The island holds about 420,000 people, of whom roughly 95 to 96% are Catholic, so it's a predominantly Catholic country. The capital city is Valletta, which in 2018 is named Europe's capital of culture. So it was an exciting time to be on the island. Malta is part of the EU and the Eurozone, and for those who are interested in travel amongst different countries, it is also part of the Schengen Treaty, which allows for fairly smooth and free travel between different countries in the EU. Malta is an independent country. It gained its independence from Britain in 1964. Through its history, it has been colonized and owned by a variety of different empires and powerful Mediterranean countries, but the latest was in Britain and independence in 1964. Both Maltese and English are official languages of the country. Our program is taught exclusively in English. Malta is very heavily dependent on tourism as its primary source of income for the country, and you'll find that it is set up to be quite welcoming. There's lots to see, from Paleolithic temples from 4000 BC through interesting current art and culture. And as I mentioned, it's predominantly a Catholic country. Just to give you a sense of where Malta is, it is that dot on the left-hand map, south of Sicily and pretty much equidistant from the coasts of Tunisia and Libya. The map on the right is Malta itself. The country of Malta is actually made up of 3 islands. The main island, Malta, is where our program's held, which is in the city of Valletta, which is in that southeast corner where the Grand Harbor is. The slightly smaller island is Gozo, which is an interesting place to go and connected by ferry to Malta, the main island of Malta. And then there's a smaller Camino, which is relatively uninhabited but has beautiful places to swim and lovely cliffs, and is a really wonderful place to visit. The program is held exclusively at the Valletta campus at the University of Malta. The picture on the left is one of our cohorts of students standing in front of the main doors. The picture on the right kind of locates where Valletta is. The city of Valletta is actually a walled city. It was fortified in the 15th century in response to a history of invasion of Muslim invaders coming at the end of the Crusades. Malta, at the end of the Crusades, ended up kind of being the last, the furthest east element of Christian Europe, and came under attack, and the city was walled after that. It's beautiful, and the entire city is a UNESCO heritage site. The University of Malta's campus that we actually teach on was founded in 1592 and sanctioned by the Pope at that time. The main campus of the university has now moved into kind of a suburb of Valletta, but our program is taught exclusively in the original campus building dating back to 1592. So here's the basics on the actual program. So this is 2 master's degrees that you will earn in 13 months. The Master of Science in Conflict Analysis and Resolution from George Mason's School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution, and then the Master of Arts in Conflict Resolution and Mediterranean Security from the University of Malta's Mediterranean Academy of Diplomacy. Coursework runs from October through June, and it is all held in Malta. We generally hold an orientation the last week of September that we ask students to be in Malta for. But it runs October through June in Malta, and I'll show you in just a minute what that looks like. Students then work independently on a thesis from June through September, and we'll be working with a thesis chair, a thesis advisor over that period, and then submit it to a 3 faculty member panel in September. The graduation actually happens in Malta in November, or for George Mason in Virginia in December, although you can also participate in the graduation in Virginia in May, if that would be your preference. And you're welcome to attend both graduation ceremonies or just one, whatever's most convenient for you. The total program tuition is 14,500 euros. which currently is approximately $17,100. We do offer a discount of €2,000 for students that apply and are accepted and put in their enrollment deposit by April 1st. So to get a sense of what classes look like, each class, you're only in one class at a time, and we typically rotate roughly between George Mason and University of Malta faculty. So your very first class is a little different because it is a 6-credit class, and so it runs for 4 weeks, but with a George Mason University faculty member that comes to Malta to teach there. And then you would have a class with on human rights, which is taught by one of our colleagues from MEDAC. So you get kind of the pattern of roughly alternating between George Mason and University of Malta faculty. So we have the facilitation class, which is a basic skills class, the conflict inquiry class, which is a class looking at how we do research and how we learn about conflict. And then you'll get a variety of different kind of issue areas. So Euro-Mediterranean dialogue, economics and conflict, media and conflict, security, culture, legal systems, environment, religion. And right in the middle of that spring semester, you'll see a class called Engaging Conflict. This is an opportunity for students to actually go engage either in some kind of research project or intervention project actually in Malta, looking at real world conflict there. It's typically a collaboration between students that come from the master's program here in Virginia at George Mason, working with students that are based there in Malta. So you'll see that once you get to May 28th, your courses are done, and students have made a variety of choices historically about whether or not they want to stay in Malta over that summer period while they're working on their thesis. Some students actually want to do field work for their thesis, so they may go somewhere else in the world to do that field work, or they may go to wherever's home for them and actually do the research and writing on that thesis. So what's unique about studying in Malta? The location, absolutely. You can imagine that being in the middle of the Mediterranean historically has meant that Malta is kind of at the crossroads for a lot of different cultures and linguistic groups. The history there goes from, as I mentioned, kind of Neolithic temples from thousands of years BC through the period of the Middle Ages and the Crusades, where Malta was the home to the Knights of Malta, the Hospitaller Knights, who had been pushed out of the Middle East. Through World War II, where Malta was the longest continuously bombed place in the world because it was sitting on the German supply lines for the fight in North Africa, through current concerns around refugees, migration, issues in the EU. They have really had to, because of location, really get out in front to think about how to handle some of the migration and refugees that are the issues that are happening in the Mediterranean. Malta is a neutral country, which means that they have relationships with countries in the Middle East and North Africa that are unique for European countries and provide the opportunity for travel to places or interacting with people just in the public spaces from many, many different parts of the world. Malta is also a fairly affordable place to live. So there is lots of housing that is intended for people who are tourists or for short-term guests, so lots of furnished apartments that are relatively affordable. It does have effective public transportation, both ferries, but also bus lines and other things to get around the island. And it's really just a fascinating place to be. To give you an idea of some of the things that students have written on in recent theses, here's 10 or so different topics. So the first one was looking at how we use maps, to how maps are getting in the way or helping with us resolving conflict, particularly focused on Israel-Palestine. We had a thesis that was titled The Reflections of the Relationship Between Law Enforcement Officers and Black Americans in Hip-Hop Music. So that student explored the lyrics of hip-hop music and how it reflected what people understood to be the relationship between law enforcement and Black America. We had a student who wrote on women's reproductive rights in Malta. So some theses that students will write will be focused in Malta, some are focused in other parts of the world. You obviously have a fantastic resource in being in the Mediterranean, but not required to write on topics of there. So if you have any further questions on the program, you can visit any of these links. So our main webpage is just escar.gmu.edu. You can see where the Masters in Malta program specifically is. And then there's a link on here that brings you to the Capital of Culture Malta 2018, so you can get a sense kind of of the city and of the country. If you have further questions than that, please feel free to reach out to us. Lisa Shaw is our Director of Student Services and Field Experience. Her email is here. SCAR Graduate Admissions is scarinfo@gmu.edu, or you can reach out to me, Julie Shedd, at jshedd@gmu.edu. Thank you for your interest in our program, and I hope that if you have any questions, you will feel free to reach out to us.